Shea Weber traded to Vegas for Evgeny Dandanov. What does it mean for the Habs? What does it mean for Vegas? And what was Shea Weber's legacy? Game 3 of the Stanley Cup final. Tampa wins it. Can they do it again? We'll tackle that and more coming up on the Face Off Hockey Podcast. What's up, hockey fans? I'm Patrick, here with my co-host in the beautiful state of Pennsylvania, representing New York, Scott. How's it going today, Scott?
All right. I'm excited about game 4. I was about to say 3. It is, in fact, game 4.
Yeah, what a game last night, but we'll get into that a bit later. First off, though, let's tackle Shea Weber to Vegas for Evgeny Dandanov. So I think this is a good trade for the Habs. Last year, they tried to trade him at the deadline pretty much for nothing, but the trade ended up falling through. Now they trade Shea Weber, who's not going to play, for an asset that can, that'll probably slot in their second line, that they can flip at the trade deadline. So, I mean, this is a big win for the Habs. But what really bothers me about this whole Shea Weber situation is that, when they traded PK Subban, to Nashville for Shea Weber, they did it to win now. But then they lingered around for like 3 years with $10 million in cap space. They didn't go all in. They did it to win now. And they never did what they had to do to win now up until a couple of years ago, where they basically splashed some cash around, gave themselves cap trouble where they had to send guys up and down of the taxi squad. And they built that team for a 1-year run. Okay. That team was not sustainable with all the free agents they had. It was a 1-year run. It was a crapshoot. Carey Price and Shea Weber carried that team to the Stanley Cup final. And then the next year, a bunch of the guys left. They spent to the cap again, and they finished 32nd in the league. So, they did it to win, and they didn't do what they had to do, which is absolutely ridiculous, which is, I think, one of the reasons that, Marc Bergevin got fired, put them in cap hell, never gave him a team, never gave Carey Price a team, and now, we have to rebuild, which is fine. This rebuild has been a long time coming. It should have been done when Marc Bergevin was hired after they had a terrible season, drafted Alex Galchenyuk. He didn't really turn out, but they had a big problem with development. They never developed their draft picks, and now here they are. Shea Weber's done. They have Evgeny Dandanov, who's, I think is a good player. He scored 28 goals twice in his career, got 65, 70 points, scored 15 goals in the shortened season. Last year, scored 20 goals. So, this is a guy that's going to help us. I mean, who knows if he's going to be with the Canadians start, at the start of the year. They might trade him, but I think, they got him to make their team better. And he's definitely somebody that's going to help them make their team better.
Yeah, you ask me, I think the Habs absolutely won that trade. I'm looking at Dandanov's contract. He's got 1 more year left on it. $5 million is an absolute steal for somebody of that caliber. Certainly, as a Ranger fan, I am no stranger to a GM who is going all in and willing to mortgage the future and put you in salary cap hell to do so. Almost worked for the Rangers in 14 and 15, did not quite. And hence the 5-year rebuild that we are finally, coming out of. In any case, Vegas, for all of their, genius moves, George McPhee took that team from the inception in 2017, 2018. They drafted well in the expansion draft. Again, different rules than we grew up with in the 90s. The Sharks, the Ducks, Ottawa, teams like that were just awful for years because you were allowed to just give it teams that would. I get it. You put a hockey team in the desert. They're already 0-1 with Arizona. So they wanted to make sure that they made the team competitive. George McPhee did a great job, not only drafting, but then making moves to solidify that team. Went to the Stanley Cup Finals, made the playoffs the next 2 years. And now it just seems like nobody can do anything right. They fired Gerard Gallant for God knows why. They're lost my gain. And George McPhee was promoted to president of hockey operations, and they brought in another GM. Now, like you mentioned, maybe it's a two-headed monster. Who knows who, I'm sure McPhee is still actually calling the shots, kind of like how we had when Sather got promoted for whatever reason. But it just seems like they're the magic that they had in those first couple of years is gone. They didn't make the playoffs this year. I don't know why they would make a trade like that. $5 million in today's NHL is nothing toward the cap for a kid with that kind of talent and that kind of potential anyway. And he's got 1 year left. Maybe you hold on to him next year and you see, around December, January, if he's not panning out, you put him on the block. They got a guy who may never play again. I guess they wanted to get their $5 million off. I get it. If Weber doesn't play, then that money's a write-off, but the Habs get it off the books. I just don't understand what Vegas was thinking there. Trading a very quality, young, wouldn't really call him a prospect, but with a lot of potential.
Well, I mean, he's still 32 years old, right? So with 1 year on his contract.
Is he that old?
Yeah,
okay, I didn't realize he was that old.
But I don't understand. I mean, it's great for the Canadians. We got a player for a guy that's never going to play again. But I mean, it's really a salary dump for them, right? They probably want to put that $5 million maybe in a goaltender or, a better forward or another defenseman, because they're still a solid team, even though they didn't make the playoffs this year. They struggled with a lot of injuries. But, I mean, from the Vegas perspective, I don't really see how this makes sense for them to get Shea Weber, who's never going to play again. And if he does play again, is he going to play a full season? Doubtful. His foot is hanging on by a thread. And if he gets this surgery that's supposed to fuse his ankle or something, he'll never be able to play again. Like last year in the playoffs, he had a 3-hour pregame routine to be able to put his skate on.
Well, I'll tell you.
2 years ago, sorry.
He's locked up at 7.8 per season. He's locked up until 2027. So I think the Vegas makes that trade hoping that he doesn't play, because if he does play, and again, like you mentioned, he can't possibly be anywhere near 100% after what he went through with those injuries. If he does play, they're now all of a sudden on the hook for 7.8, almost 7.9 million in a guy who is also getting up there in years and is nowhere near, assumingly, not going to be anywhere near he was at his prime. Yeah, he was one of the best defensemen in the league, hands down, but he's just not going to be that anymore. So I think Vegas is praying that he does not play, because then they're that money's going to be on the salary cap books, and then they made him. They're rolling the dice is what they're doing. If he doesn't play, both teams win. Everybody wins. If he does, Vegas is in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Well, Canadians also made this trade because there's so much uncertainty around Carey Price. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Is his career over? So they just couldn't have close to $20 million tied up in IR. Nobody wants to operate like that.
Right.
That's basically what Kent Hughes was saying. There's a lot to do with the Carey Price situation, and that, nobody wants to operate with IR. Some teams have to. Vegas is going to have to, because Shea Weber is not coming back. Let's just face the facts. But they can't say too much, right? Because he wants to get paid, and if they basically come out flat out say he's never going to play again, well, then the insurance is going to be like, well, if he can't play again, then he's going to have to retire, and that would totally screw over Nashville, because they'd be stuck with this cap hit, right? Because they signed into a contract that goes beyond the age of 35, which is a ridiculous rule. I know why they did it, to try and deter teams from signing 32-year-olds to 8-year contracts, but it screws over a lot of teams. For instance, if Carey Price can't play again, he's gonna have to be on IR 4 years instead of just retiring, but he's not going to want to leave $35 million on the table.
Yeah.
But which is interesting though, we take a look at these contracts, $10.5 million. Pretty much every team that has a player that's getting paid $10 million plus is out of the playoffs and has not won a Stanley Cup, except for maybe, I'm not sure how much Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane were getting paid. I think it's somewhere close to $10 million, but they won 3 cups.
Yeah.
So anyways, I don't know. It's a big win for the Habs to be able to move that contract off the books, and he's never going to play again. So that's pretty much what it comes down to. Cap dump for Vegas, off the IR for Habs. They get a player that they can flip at the deadline, because they're going to be bad again this year. I don't think they're going to do too much. They said they want to be aggressive in free agency, but who's going to want to come to a Montreal Canadiens team that's probably going to finish in the bottom 5 again.
You never know what these guys think. I mean, when the Rangers signed Panarin, we still had 2 years to go, at least on our rebuild. Panarin was signed. He took less money. In fact, he took less money to sign with the Rangers than the Islanders were offering him. He signed with the Rangers for 10.5. The Islanders were offering him either 11 or 12. I think it was a full $1.5 million he left on the table. And the Islanders, obviously, at the time, were ready to rock. That was a back-to-back conference finals team, and they, with him on the team, that might have been a lot more than just losing in the conference finals. So you never know what these guys are thinking. He turned that down. Zibanejad signed long term in the middle of of the rebuild. So these guys, maybe they see the extended future, or maybe it's just a destination that they want to go to. I mean, why does Phil Kessel keep re-signing with Phoenix? Maybe they like it somewhere. So yeah, I mean, he's like, and I'll tell you what. Here's where Jeff Gordon comes into play, because I'm sure the players are aware, their agents are aware that here's a guy that knows how to flip a team into a contender in a relatively short amount of time, or short as a salary cap league would allow. So I think that's a huge selling point. I think the GM alone is a huge selling point for free agents.
Kent Hughes is a former agent, right? So he has a lot of connections to players. So just that might help them. And also the Martin St. Louis factor, the way he plays, the way he sets his team up, it's not really a system, it's more concepts. He really wants his players to play more on instinct than having to be told, oh, in this situation you have to be here, and in that situation you have to be there. So I think it's an attractive way to play for players. But again, Panarin wanted to go to New York. His wife's a model. New York's a good place for that. He pretty much was only going to sign with New York, right?
I mean, he could, and I think supposedly she was the driving force behind leaving that $1.5 million on the table and going to the Rangers. She wanted to go to Broadway in Manhattan instead of Long Island, so that probably had something to do with it. Yeah.
Well, also Florida was in the mix too, but I'm not really sure what they offered him, or if they offered him anything.
Well, there's no income. I'm surprised. It's no surprise that Tampa's been this good for this long. What surprises me is that the Panthers took so long to get good, because no income tax in the state of Florida, which means your salary is like 20% higher. Probably more than that, because these guys are not in the same tax bracket I'm in. It's probably I don't know what the tax rate is on income tax, for that level, but it's at least 20-25% at least
compared to
more money than they're making anywhere else.
Compared to Montreal, where they take 52% of your paycheck if you're making that much money. Which is pretty ridiculous, which is another reason that some players don't want to come here. You have to pay them like a good $2 million more for them to be able to get the same amount of money in their bank account as they would in Florida, for instance.
Yep. No, that's definitely, So what they do have going for him, you brought up St. Louis. That's, he's only a couple months into his coaching career, but we can already tell he's a player's coach. He's a guy, I mean, hell, he could, he could suit up and get out there if need be, kind of like Lester Patrick did for the Rangers.
Maybe
1940 finals.
And he's also a good teacher. There's this video on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen it, but it was Marty St. Louis teaching Cole Caulfield how to first fake a shot, skate more into the middle, and then take the shot to draw the defenseman to block the shot. And then a couple of weeks later, we saw Cole Caulfield do that same move, fake the slap shot from the dot, moved in, ripped one top corner, because the defenseman went down to block the shot, then he had an open shooting lane. So it's just little things like that they can teach players, because he's one of the best offensive players of his generation,
Sure.
Two Ross trophies, Stanley Cup, just a great player,
Yep. No, definitely. So there's definitely some draws there. All another couple of years of misery aside, there's definitely some draws in the coach and management. I mean, hell, not just that he's a player's coach. He played with most of the guys that are still in the league. It's a great recruiting tool. They know him.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of St. Louis and the Lightning, Game 3. Wow, I wasn't expecting that. Nor was I expecting a 7-0 after Game 2. But, are they going to do it again?
Well, that remains to be seen, but it's amazing how quick the series and any series can turn on a dime. And that's exactly what happened. Because if you think about it, after game two, everybody said, all right, this is over, 4 games, 5 games tops. And it still might be. If they split here, the series is over. 3-1 going back to Colorado, series is probably over. But, Tampa Bay technically doesn't control their own destiny. Well, they kind of do, I guess.
They have to win.
Right. But so if Tampa wins tonight, then look at the situation. So after that blowout, and I'm a firm believer that momentum is not carried over in games of the series. I'm a firm believer that no matter what happened in one game means absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. How do you recover from that? How do you recover from a 7-0 game? Well, you drop the puck, you go out, you play the next game. Just like the Rangers first.
Dust yourself off and get ready for the next game.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if it's a 7-0 an overtime game. It doesn't matter. These guys know that. They're professionals. Been doing this their whole lives. Rangers lost first in Pittsburgh at home in 3 overtime. How do you respond to that? You come out and they won game 2. Yeah. So they exchanged blowouts, absolute embarrassment in game 2, but Tampa turned right back around. They made an absolute embarrassment the other way in game 3. Now, if you think about it, the series is 2-1. Game 1 was an overtime. So Tampa is an overtime goal away from leading this thing 2-1 with a chance to put a strong hold on it. So, not only winning that game, but winning that game the way they did could be an anomaly. Who knows? But the way they won that game has to give them all sorts of confidence. And it's a brand new series tonight. Yep, Tampa still absolutely must win tonight. No doubt about it.
Are they playing tonight or tomorrow?
Is it tonight?
Are they playing back to back?
I'm just let me look that. That was last night.
Yeah, that was last night. Unless they're playing back to back, which I doubt.
No, it's Wednesday. I'm sorry. You know what? For some reason, I was thinking, no, the game. Yes, the game 2, game 3 was Monday. For some reason, I was thinking Monday meaning last night. For some reason, I was thinking it was 2 nights ago. Yes, not tonight. So tomorrow.
I wish it was Wednesday. But it's fine. I'm working from home tomorrow and Thursday, since it's a holiday here in Quebec. It's our equivalent of 4th of July on Friday. So that's going to be the 1-year anniversary of Philippe Danault scoring in overtime to send the Habs to the Stanley Cup final. What a night that was. But
I bet.
But we all know that Tampa wasn't going to go down quietly. There was no way they were going to let themselves be swept. Even though Colorado's a juggernaut offense and defense, they had like a top 3 offense in the league, top 3 defense in the league, which they're a great team. This is the first real test that both the teams, I believe, have faced so far these playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt. Tampa just showed their resiliency last round, being down 2-0. And then, I noticed, and maybe I'm just blowing it out of proportion. Does it seem to you like you're seeing a home ice advantage? You're seeing the home teams dominate across the board the entire playoffs. I'm like more so that it just sticks out in my mind more so than I can ever remember seeing. You saw it with Boston, Carolina. You saw it with Rangers, Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
You saw it in Tampa and the Rangers. Now, so all of those series were heavy to my own personal interest, but and now you're seeing it here. It just seems to me like home ice advantage is just more of an advantage than it's ever been. Maybe it has to do with this is the first real playoffs in which everybody's back to 100% capacity. I mean, you had most of it, pretty much except for you guys in Toronto. You had most of it last year.
Yeah.
But and I think Vancouver as well. But everybody back to 100%. People are.
Players are jacked up that playoffs in front of their fans for the first time in a couple of years. So I think it definitely has something to do with it.
Now I saw it firsthand with when people think of home ice advantage, the first thing they think about is the crowd. But playoff crowd's going to be playoff crowds. Again, these guys are professionals. Just the last change in the matchups Again, with the Rangers against Carolina, when Jordan Staal was guarding Zibanejad, he was completely useless in the games in Carolina, and then he just went absolutely ballistic at MSG.
Yeah.
So they just the matchups, the home teams are just getting it right, and I'm noticing just across the board it's happening.
Yeah, I think Nathan McKinnon was mentioning last night that the crowd had a big part to do with it. It was intimidating for them. The crowd was loud. It got to them, which really pisses me off because we have one of the best crowds in the league, and all these freaking teams come into Montreal. They're like, "Oh, I love playing at the Bell Center so much. It's such a great atmosphere." No, I don't want you to love playing here. I want you to be scared. To hate the crowd, to not want to play here. I want to come here and be like, "Oh man, we're playing at the Bell Center. This is gonna be a really tough game." But that's not how it is. The Canadians need to bring that back because we have one of the best crowds, if not the best crowd in the league, and we should be intimidating, but we're not for some reason.
Well, anytime you have, I saw it firsthand. I mean, we went to game 2 of the playoffs. I saw, I've been to playoff games. I've seen the Rangers in Philly, which I thought was going to be the most intimidating crowd I've ever seen. It wasn't. Montreal is definitely the most intimidating crowd
I guess playoffs is different than regular season, I guess. Maybe.
Well, the intensity was there as well. Opening night we went to. Now, nobody, you kind of knew the Habs weren't going to be as good, but you didn't expect how bad it was going to be. So it was opening night, and that was the first game at 100% capacity. Because remember, all summer long, they were fighting tooth and nail, going, half capacity, this and that, and then they finally, like a week before the game, we didn't have tickets because it would have been triple the price for for an opening night in which they're raising the conference banner or whatever they called it last year.
We only raise Stanley Cup banners. We raise Stanley Cups and numbers. That's all we raise.
Sorry.
We don't have enough room for like conference final banners. Our rafters are full. So we got one spot left for our 25th, which will hopefully come in my lifetime. Hopefully when I'm young enough to still enjoy it.
Yeah, you and me both. I'm looking for 5, but hey, my drought is 1 year less than your drought. We got the same drought going on.
Yeah, well, we're going on 30 years. So it's I was 10 the last time they won a Stanley Cup, and I'm gonna be turning 40 in May. So anyways, game 4. Game 4, I think Colorado has to win it. I think they need to step on their throat. Otherwise, Tampa's gonna be like, all right, we're back in this now. I mean, I don't think they're gonna go, even if Tampa wins, I don't think they're gonna make it, 4 in a row like they did against Rangers. I still think it will go 7 if Tampa ends up winning tonight, but they're gonna be riding high, saying we did it again. We did it last series. We can do this again. So it's gonna be a really tough game for both teams.
Yeah, and definitely. And I have to give the advantage to Tampa there because Tampa, most of the time I like to say that the whole playoff experience thing is overrated, but what Tampa has is something that we haven't seen in years with that kind of experience. Not only do they have guys that have been here before, obviously, but they have guys in the last 3 years, they've been in every possible situation in the playoffs you could possibly imagine. So nothing phases these guys. That's the thing. And I think the pressure, Colorado just looks like they're having fun out there. Obviously not so much last game, but they just look like they're having fun out there. And this is a Colorado team that has been here, not in the finals, but has been a legit contender for a few years now. And I think, again, these guys are professionals and they shake it off, but that's got to be going through some of their minds. Maybe not tonight because they are up 2-1, but if they lose this game, and it doesn't have to be a blowout fashion, but just if they lose this game and the series is tied 2-2, then all of the talk and everything is going to go back to Tampa because, here we go again with Tampa. Back cups, they just went down 2-0. Nothing phases these guys. And then Colorado, it might start to bother them a little bit that they did underachieve the last couple of years because they have been a legit contender for the last 2 years at least. And, so they were expected to win. So they're expected to win it this year. They were expected to win it when the season started, and nothing changed all season long. Yeah, some people got on the Florida thing, but for the most part, we all knew that Colorado was the most complete team, and that might add added pressure to them, knowing that they're coming up on if they don't win it this year and they let this series slip away, they're coming up on Tampa, 2015 through 2019 Tampa that kept getting there and underachieving. Or before that, you can even say I think the Red Wings. The Red Wings from 94. I don't remember 93, but 94, I know they were the 1 seed and they lost to the 8 seed Sharks, which was a huge deal.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember watching that game, game 7 in overtime, I believe.
Yeah.
I think it was like triple overtime or something crazy like that.
And so, they 95, 96, they set a record. No, I'm sorry, 95, the very next year, they set a record in the regular season that I believe has since been broken, but a regular season record for either wins or points, or I'm assuming both, and then get to the finals against the Devils team that should have been just happy to be there and get swept. So,
yeah.
And finally they exploded 2 years later, 97, 98. 2002, 2009, they finally exploded, but they were underachieving and people were, starting to question, break up this team. What's wrong with them? And you had Tampa the next one. And now Colorado wants to avoid being the next step in that, by getting it done this year. And that might be weighing heavily on their minds. So if they lose tonight, it certainly will be.
Yeah. But one big thing though, number one, I thought, even though I picked Colorado, I thought that Vasilevsky may be the difference maker, but he hasn't looked great. Even the 2 goals then the other night weren't great goals, So he's looking more human than he has in past series. In past years, that's for sure.
He definitely is. People are starting to exploit that blocker. And I saw the numbers today, and I don't remember what it said. Something like maybe 29 goals or so.
Yeah, I saw that
on the blocker side, something like that. So they're starting to exploit it. Yeah, he does not look as strong. Even though they pretty much shut down the Rangers for 4 straight after being down 2-0. I don't think that was so much him as it was just we talked about that. The Rangers just ran out of gas, just the lack of rest for the first 2.5 rounds just caught up with them in the COVID crunch schedule. But he certainly did what he had to do, not to take anything away from him. But, the Rangers, before the Rangers ran out of gas, they were scoring some not so great goals on him. So, yeah I think that I 100% agree. I don't think this is the same Vasilevsky we saw in the last couple of years. Florida versus Florida, they definitely was. But, I think since
they're
that
Florida
tired, man.
They played so much hockey in the last 3 years. And, with the shortened summer last year, they won the cup in July, then camp started early September, so they had like half the time they usually have, even if they do go to the cup, they had a good month less time to like rest and recuperate and get ready for the next season, but another big factor will be is Kucherov going to be playing because he went out injured. They're saying, if it was up to him, he says he's good to play tomorrow. John Cooper said if it was up to me, he's good to play tomorrow, but they're going to wait and see what the doctors say. So if Kucherov is not playing, then you're down 2 of your best players with Braden Point. Although was Point back? If he did, I didn't notice him. So, then you're down 2 of your best players, which, is a big deal. And you take a look at the stats up until last night, I think that, their top line had like zeros across the board, like -2 to -4, so.
If Kucherov's not ready to go, they're in a lot of trouble. They really impressed being without Braden Point. Absolutely. I don't think, that would be a second star, not to mention the star. I don't think they could survive that. Not against Colorado. Not against Colorado. Kucherov, if he's back, and if he is back, being, I'd say a 90% Kucherov is good enough. It's still probably
will he be 90% though?
If he's 90% or above, they'll be all right. If not,
they're in big trouble.
They are in big trouble.
Yeah, I mean, either way though, I don't know. I still think Colorado is going to pull through and get it done, but Tampa's not going to go down easy. It's going to be they're going to have to they're in for the fight of their lives, even though they're up 2-1 in this series.
Yeah, no doubt. Like you said, Tampa's not going to go down easy, and I've been saying it all playoffs long. Tampa is the 2-time defending Cup champs until they're not, and they still are.
Perfect. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for today. Again, we try to keep these shows about half an hour now, but good show. It's gonna be a great game tomorrow night, and we'll be back with you guys next week to probably break down the Stanley Cup champions. And with that, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, share us on social media, and we'll see you again next week on the Face Off Hockey Podcast. Cheers.
All right, enjoy game 4.